Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining my session. Today I want to talk to you guys about UX writing, but before we start, I want to give a big shout out to Victor and David from the Lexicon team. Thank you for all your help putting extra hours after work and helping getting this guide up and running. And then another special thanks, he's not here, is Russell Bohl. He's a technical writer and he's been giving us a lot of perspective from his side, from a technical writer's perspective, okay? So I want to start today by asking you guys, how many of you guys have done this? You guys are laying something out, you pick some images, you add like visual elements, you go super hi-fi, right? And you even do like typography, choose color, and then you add like lorem ipsum or filler copy that you think you're going to get back to later on. And then you think, okay, I'm pretty happy with this. I'm pretty satisfied, right? I think this is most of us at some point. But I think this is a bad practice to do. And let me tell you why. Let's go through a little thought experiment, okay? This is Spotify, if you guys don't know. So I removed all the words from Spotify and just try to imagine going through Spotify and playing a song. Chances are you're going to be able to play a song, but like finding a specific one is going to be a pain. You know, you're gonna have to go through millions of album covers, and then you have to know like what the album cover looks like. And even when you get there, you're probably gonna have to go through like each individual song to get to the song that you want. Okay, let's take it to the other extreme. Remove the UI, and this is a command line interface version of a music player, and try going through the same task. You're going to be able to, find the song by hitting browse, and then there's probably going to be some search interface, and then you type in the song that you want, and then you're going to scroll through with your keyboard arrows, and then get to the song. So you're going to be able to complete your task that you want. It's going to be a little awkward and a little inefficient, but you'll be able to get there. So I think along the way, us designers, we figured out the best interfaces combine, good UI with good interactions with really well thought out copy and micro copy. But then oftentimes as designers, we emphasize the interaction and the typography, the visual elements, all that stuff. But the content is often an afterthought. But as you could see in this example, words really matter. What we say matters, how we say it, how much of it we say it, when we say it, and what words we use. Words really matters, right? But we're not as intentional about our copy and microcopy as we are about all the other components in Lexicon. So I think it's time that we start doing that. And that's why we started creating this guide. Okay, so let's talk about the state of writing at Liferay. I think that us as designers, we operate under some assumptions. And these are the assumptions that are kind of holding us back from becoming better at writing. And first is Lexicon. We think our design system has an answer for us and we just need to look it up eventually. But up till now, we really didn't have much support in terms of writing, and we're trying to address this now. Okay, and then the second one is team. We think somebody else is going to review it. So we're kicking the can down the line. And they're gonna find perfect copy and then they're gonna replace it before we release. But oftentimes, if it's like mediocre or even subpar, it's going to get pushed through. And unless it's like a super red flag, nobody's gonna change it. And even if they do, it's like coming from their perspective and it's gonna be from their voice and still gonna lack that cohesion. And then third is style. We think, style elements are really common sense to me. I know all of it. I know how to punctuate. I know how to capitalize. It's really common sense and ultimately not that important, but it actually is. And this is the easiest way for us to get consistent in our writing. So we should at least know the rules of style before we start writing anything. And then overconfidence. We think as designers, we have a strong command of language, even though, this is not our area of focus. So either we are overconfident about our ability or we are thinking that writing is not that important. So both of those assumptions are wrong, actually. And then personality. We think our company doesn't have personality. We think we just need to write everything as plainly as possible and we're good. But actually, guess what? A plain personality is still a personality and it still needs to be defined. So we go through these assumptions at the cost and expense of consistency and cohesion in our designs. And we need to get over this hump so we could make a better experience for our users, okay? And I'm about to show you some examples. And I just want you to know, I'm not trying to point any one person out. If this is your design, please don't take offense. This is just the first example that I found on DXP and AC, okay? So here's an example. We're in categories and we're asking them to add a category, right? This is the CTA. I mean, so far so good, right? Add category. But when we want to get rid of it, we're saying, okay, let's delete it. But if we're saying let's add something, shouldn't the parallel word be removed, add and remove, right? So actually that's even incorrect. It should be delete. In this case, delete is correct because the category is a new entity or record that hasn't existed in this instance. So we are creating something. So in this case, it should be create and delete. And these are the type of rules that we're trying to address in the UX writing guide. Okay, let's take the same example and let's look at the navigation. So we're saying categories. Yes, let's create categories. And then right when we get into categories, we say, hey, add your vocabularies. And once you create your vocabularies, you can finally add your topics. What? Right? This is the type of stuff that makes our users pause and kind of get confused and lose confidence, not in the interface, but in themselves. And that's kind of something we want to avoid. We want to make them feel good and feel confident about what they're doing in our products. Okay, I'm not saying this is wrong. Maybe there is a reason why we need to have vocabularies in there, but we need to at least be intentional and explain what it means, what vocabularies means in the context of categories, or at least match the mental model, okay? And then we also run into situations like this. We are so eager to over-explain. We hit users with a huge block of text, but knowing well that people tend to just scan things on the internet. They're not really reading things. And then just hitting them with a huge block of text like this is kind of telling them like we aren't really empathetic of their journey. Like we aren't really considerate. So let's consider this case, like let's drill down a little bit deeper. We're expecting users to find out about what interest topics are if they go into settings and they navigate to definitions and interest topics, instead of like learning what interest topics are in the context of interest topics, right? And then that's not even the primary goal of the screen. It's to add a keyword block list. So this navigation is all wrong. So yeah, we shouldn't like try to over-explain. We should just be tactful and mindful and speak to their current needs, okay? And then even further, we have examples like this. These are all empty states that exist in prod right now. The first one says, there are no display page templates. To me, that sounds like a grocery store worker saying, there's no mangoes here, right? The second one is no collections yet. Fortunately, it's really easy to add new ones, right? And that one sounds like a construction worker saying, hey, there's no plumbing yet, but fortunately we have the pipes. We just need to connect it to the house. And then finally, we have all aboard. All users from this workspace have access to this property. And now we're train conductor. So we go from grocery store clerk to construction worker to train conductor, right? We have so many different voices. And until we find out who we are, what our voices are, and what we want to say, how we want to say things, we're going to look like we're going through a little bit of an identity crisis to our users, right? We don't know what we're saying. We don't know how we want to say things. And so basically, like all of us, I think we're really great designers. And until we figure out our voice and until we figure out what words we want to use and stuff, we're going to be able to get users to their end goal. But along the way, we're going to say things that are going to make them awkward. We're going to make them feel uncomfortable. And this is not an indictment of the designers. It's because where we are in our maturity, right? We're in this awkward phase. So we need to kind of, we need to improve our guide. So we are just being able to find our voice so that we can improve and mature out of this. Okay, so how do we do this? The first thing is principles. We need to figure out our principles. So since version 2 of Lexicon, Cody Hogue actually created these principles. Our principles were clear, consistent, confident, and current, right? But I don't really know who Cody is, and I don't think he's a designer. So I just wanted to make sure that what he did was actually supporting the user's needs and actually setting them up for future success. And how I did that was just map these over Maslow's hierarchy of needs. For those of you guys that are uninitiated to what Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's just a theory that people seek to satisfy the basic needs first, and then as they go up this pyramid, they get to self-actualization, which means to fulfill their potential, right? So they need to fulfill the basic ones before they progress to the next level. So for the basic needs, the basic level, the most fundamental is clarity. If we don't have clarity in our voice, in our writing, then our users are going to keep like seeking out clarity, whether it's through support tickets, documentation, whether it's online or asking colleagues. They need clarity to be satisfied first. And second is consistency. So I liken this to Maslow's hierarchy of safety, because consistency brings order and predictability into the world. And if their environment is predictable and orderly, they feel like they can control it, therefore they feel safe. Okay. So these are our basic needs. And once they satisfy them, then they can move on to the psychological needs. So psychological needs, the first one is current. Why current is a psychological needs is because we want to make the users feel like they're connected and then they belong here. We want to make them feel like we designed this product for you. We don't care about what happens down the line. That we don't care about the consequences of things that are going to happen later, but we want to help you get through to your task and you belong here right now, right? Because if we're talking about something that happens way down the line, that might be some other user later on. So we actually want to be current to them. So that's how we make them feel like they belong. And once we satisfy them, that one is confidence. So confidence begets more confidence. More confident, we're talking about getting them through a task, getting them through a flow, getting them through a journey. The more confident they're going to feel about the outcome. And then they're going to be more likely to have more self-esteem and share and want to continue using our products. So what I realized was we were able to satisfy the psychological and basic needs, and what these are known as our deficiency needs. So that means the more we have of these, the less we seek. So the more clarity we have, the less we seek. The more consistency we give them, the less they're going to want more consistency. Same with current and confident. But we're missing is a self-actualization growth needs, right? So the growth needs are things that are like the more that we have, the more that we need. And what I think is missing is we can handle this with being conversational. What I mean by that is adding in an emotional layer to our writing so that, you know, like any really great human to human interaction, we're just going to be normal most of the time. But, you know, we want to share with them at the needs when they're like excited, we want to share in their excitement. When they need support, we want to be there to support them. And sometimes we even want to be like the source of their delight and joy, right? And by being emotionally there for them, we're kind of setting them up for success, and they want to keep coming back to our product to reach their full potential, to self-actualize. Okay, so you might be saying, okay, yeah, we've had these principles, some version of these principles, and I still didn't know how to write. How is this going to be actionable, and how is this going to be practical? So we're going to turn these principles, and we created 4 new sections. The first is the writing framework, and then the writing style, common UI patterns, and brand voice. And hopefully these 4 sections will make all of us better writers. So first of all, I want to just go through the writing framework. So what the writing framework is supposed to just serve as guardrails. We've outlined 8 rules that designers are supposed to follow, and then hopefully it'll guide you toward the right way. How I imagine the designers to use this is basically just look for a couple areas maybe that you're having trouble with, and then try to work on those areas first and then expand out to the other areas. And then also just kind of check your work against this framework from time to time. So the first one is be concise. Just like we do in our interface, we want to remove extra things that are irrelevant, that are just unnecessary, just to make it super simple. And that means, you know, keeping sentences short. We have rules like try to limit your sentences to 20 words, break up long paragraphs, and then practice progressive disclosure. Like really consider the user's journey and whether they need to know this information now or at another place. And your job is not done until you put that copy in the right place, right? So be concise. Second one is using an active voice, mostly. We want to use an active voice because it's more clear and direct and easier to read. How we do this is really simple. We use the formula subject, verb, object. That means like something like I download content instead of the content is downloaded by me, right? We want to say I download content. The passive version is the content is downloaded by me. And the reason why we say mostly, is sometimes we do want to use a passive voice. So we'll use an active voice when we're directing someone to do something or suggesting someone to go click this or do that. But then as a response to their action, we want to use a passive voice. So we could just drop the subject and say, I download content. We could say content downloaded instead of content downloaded by you. Okay, so all of these rules are outlined and we have details in the sections, and you can find it on Lexicon. This section is almost done. We're just waiting for a couple more examples and it will be up. The next is write at a lower reading level. You know, it's counterintuitive. We think, you know, we gravitate toward the smartest person using the biggest words, knowing all the jargon, but studies have shown that, you know, people that talk like that, you know, there's actually less trust in those kind of people. So we want to make sure that we're able to communicate to someone in middle school or high school just with our words and explain to them. You know that saying, right? If you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough, right? So we want to write at a lower reading level, and then also it provides it's an accessibility issue, so therefore it's a UX issue. Okay. Next is making your content scannable. So all of you guys have read those articles on NN Group. People don't read, they scan. They're looking for keywords to latch onto. So let's optimize it for them, right? If we're reading at an F pattern, we want to put the objective of the sentence or phrase in the beginning, right? So I want to say to download content, go to Documents and Media, not to go to Documents and Media to download content. Because if I'm looking, right, and I see go to Documents and Media, it doesn't tell me anything. But if I see to download content, I know exactly which sentence I want to latch onto. And then using a positive form of a sentence. I think this, like our empty states kind of use this a lot. We say there's no notifications or there's no segments. So instead of saying that, we want to be more positive and create a positive emotional response and more actionable. So we want to say, you read all your messages or notifications. And create your first segment instead of there are no segments, right? And then first, second, and third person. So if we want to be conversational, we really need to draw a line in the sand and say, and really define who I am, who you are, and who they are, right? So when we're talking about LifeRay, when we're talking about us, we say we, us, our. But when we're talking about our user, we want to say you, your. And then when we talk about third person, we want to use gender neutral pronouns and say them, they, their, okay? The only exception is for our users is if we are asking them a question and we also provide their answer for them. So like accepting terms and conditions, and you know that checkbox where it says I accept, that would be the only exception to this rule. So that means like staying away from saying things like my account, my profile, my segments, and things like that. Because if we're having a conversation with them, it creates a little bit of a cognitive dissonance when we're saying, okay, your, and then suddenly it's my. Okay, so we really want to be strict with this. And then using simple verb tenses. I think since a lot of our designers were really nice people, and we try to make things sound softer, but let's not do that. Just be direct. I don't think any of us read things from like other interfaces and think, okay, you're being too direct and this is really rude. Just be direct. So instead of I have had downloaded, just say I downloaded. We don't want to use perfect tenses. And then finally, it's consider localization. We're an international team writing for an international audience, right? So in between that, there's a translation service. So us considering localization is really being considerate of that translation service. This goes back to the writing style stuff. We want to take a perspective and just stick with it, because let's just say, for example, you write 02/04/2020. It can be interpreted as February 4th, 2020 or April 2nd, 2020. We don't want to leave room for interpretation. We just want them to translate. And then we also want to avoid being colloquial. Like, we don't want to say things like, oh, I don't think you can wrap your head around this. Say, I don't think you can understand this, right? This is an example. Of course, we won't say that to our users. But yeah, so that's what I mean by consider localization. And that's the writing framework. Next, we're going to talk about the writing styles. So ever since I started working at LifeRay, there was like an unspoken rule that we use the Chicago manual style. But I think in my entire duration of working here, I've never seen a copy of the Chicago Manual Style on any of your tables, all right? I've never seen you guys reference it. I don't think we even have a resource that we can use to reference it. So how can we say we use a certain style if we don't really use it? So I saw that as a pain point, and what I did was just basically go through the manual and surface the areas where we're having a lot of the problems, so that we can maintain consistency. We don't have to read the whole thing, just like some certain areas. And then we also adapted things like capitalization for the web, because Chicago Manual was written for publications and not for the web. So the rule here now going forward is we're going to make everything sentence case, right? That's just the rule of thumb. The reason why we're going to do this is not only is it easier to scan and it's more friendlier, it's just the easier rule of thumb to follow, right? So I don't know if you guys have noticed, like, because certain areas have periods and certain areas don't, we're going to use title case, and we try to get away with it by using a sentence form when it doesn't really mean, it's not really a sentence, and then we use a sentence case. So we have like kind of awkward typography everywhere. So we're just going to use sentence case everywhere. That includes titles, right? And of course, we have some exceptions, like if we're making abbreviations or navigation, but that's all documented in this section. And this section is already up. You can find it in Lexicon now. Okay, and the other areas are punctuations, hyphens, numbers, UI references. This is a new section. And then dates and time. The next section is common content patterns. For this section, we're gonna work on this right after the writing style guides are done, or the writing framework is done. But in this section, we're just gonna highlight areas of common concern. So we already have this one up, common words, but we're gonna talk about how to write confirmations, how to write lists, how to write links, menus, titles, how to deliver bad news, descriptions, instructions, errors, and error recovery. So for this section, we're gonna be a little bit more prescriptive, kind of like the components that we have in Lexicon, giving you like exactly how to handle these situations, okay? And again, we're still working on this, except common words. This is already up. And then finally, it's brand voice. For brand voice, this is the area that we've done the least amount of work, and I wanted to get all of you guys' help to get started today. Our goal is to find our voice today, and later on figure out exactly where we can inject our personality. And then I suspect it's going to be areas like the 404 page, error messages, empty states, success pages, onboarding, things like that. But I just want your help to kind of get to our brand voice. So at the end of this, we're going to go through an exercise, okay? So this is what we have in the handbook, in the communication section. We say LifeRay is down to earth, friendly, and professional. Our tone should be positive and inspire readers to take action. This is a really good start, but still kind of too broad. But did you guys know back in 2018, early 2019, some of the designers worked with our CEO, Brian, and defined our personality? So this is another thing that I'm going to be surfacing up to you guys. It was really hidden. So this is what we have defined. This is our personality. We are more mass appeal than elite. We are more playful than serious. We're right in the middle of conventional and disruptive. We lean more towards authority than a friend, and then more towards young and innovative than mature and classic. Okay, so to find our voice and to find our personality, we're going to use this as a starting point to gather data. And what we're going to do is lay the 12 Jungian archetypes over these personality traits. And this is a very common practice that other brands do. People use this to write screenplays and movies and stuff like that. So these are the 12 Jungian archetypes, okay? And this is what I found. So for the first one, we lean more towards a citizen than a magician. We lean more towards jester than a ruler. We're right in between a citizen and a creator. We lean more towards ruler than caregiver. And we lean more towards creator than a ruler, okay? So what does that mean? I'm just gonna choose citizen as our primary personality because we have the most here. And the best brands really do well if they have a really good primary personality. And then it doesn't mean we can't have a secondary one, but we need to really hone our primary voice. Okay, so this is our personality, and this is what it means to be a citizen. This is the profile of the citizen. It's also known as the everyman, the neighbor, the servant, and the orphan. It just depends on what resource you're looking at. And this is the personality. realistic, down to earth, transparent. Our goals are to belong and to connect with our user. Given our heritage of being an open source company, this really speaks out to me. So to accept and to be accepted, even our company culture, right? Our voice is humble, friendly, honest, and practical. And then our fears is being left out and, funny enough, standing out from the crowd, okay? When I read this screams out life rate to me, right? If you guys agree, give me a thumbs up. Oh, nobody, huh? Cool. Okay, so what I did was I tried to find other examples of citizens, and then what we're gonna do is just find quotes from these people, right? I need all of your guys' help. So I just want to give you an example before we start. So Jim Halpert from The Office, he's a really good example of a citizen. Barack Obama, he's a representative of the people. He's an ex-president of the United States, in case you guys didn't know. And then Tom Hanks, he's an actor. And pretty much any movie that Tom Hanks has been in, he's this citizen, everyman, good neighbor type of character, okay? So this is the first quote from Jim. Okay, Michael, I thought we agreed not to take up people's times with meetings like these, right? He's really caring about his community, his people, he wants to belong. He's being very straightforward and honest and practical. So this is a really good example of a citizen. Next is Obama. The future rewards those who press on. I don't have time to feel sorry for myself. I don't have time to complain. I'm just going to press on. He's being very honest. He's being very humble. He is acknowledging, there's something happening that's negative, but he's saying, I have a goal and I don't have time to waste on this, right? I don't want to stick out from the crowd by complaining. I don't want to stick out of the crowd by being that emo guy in the corner just crying. Like, I have to just move forward. And then finally, it's Tom Hanks. So from now on, we live in a world where man has walked on the moon. It's not a miracle. We just decided to go. He's being super humble. Like, if I was him and my team, we went to the moon, I'd be bragging. I wouldn't say it's not a miracle. I would say it is a damn miracle. But he's saying it's not a miracle. He's very down to earth, just being humble. And you know what? Like, I can even see this as being something like a success page, right? So from now on, we live in a world where barrel.com exists. It's not a miracle. We just banded together to work on it, right? You see where I'm going with this, right? So what I want to do today is kind of get everybody involved and just have you guys find other examples of citizens. What citizens can you think of in popular culture, in movies, and just find some quotes and just add on to this list. So I'm going to share this Figma file with you guys. So if you guys can all join this and find your own versions. So you might be still confused or you might have some more questions, so you're free to ask me, but some other examples of citizen and everyman are Will Smith, right? Mulan is another version. Drew Barrymore is another everyman. And I want to show, before we start, I want to share two commercials. Maybe it'll help you kind of understand it a little better. The first is, are you guys hearing the sound?
No, we are not.
No, I'm not.
You gotta share your screen again, and then in that dialogue, there are checkboxes in the bottom left. I found it on my own without any help.
I see.
True. Yeah, true.
All right, so these, I have to install the Zoom audio device.
The new Chris Paul workout show.
If you want to make it to the NBA, you got to have a killer crossover.
TNCP crossover.
Oh, Jake from State Farm.
Here's the deal. There's no replacing the real Chris Paul, just like there's no replacing State Farm.
So he's the everyman.
Man, what happened? Who are you?
I'm the new Chris Paul.
Man. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
You see that it said, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. So, you know, he's embodying that everyman, the neighbor, that persona. And the next one is Apple. You guys remember these commercials? Apple versus Mac?
And I'm a
obviously
PC.
Apple.
Well, after 5 years, Vista's finally here.
Whoopee for the whole entire world.
What's wrong?
Well, that isn't wrong. I mean, my new operating system arrives. I've had nothing but problems. I had to buy a new graphics card, get new memory. Now I can't even use some of my software and peripherals. I mean, let's face it, this party's a bust.
We should do this again sometime.
Sure, are you free in another 5 years?
Ooh, I have an all-day meeting in 5 years. How about 5 years in a day?
I got a strategy session that day. What about 5 years and 2 days?
Hello, I'm a Mac.
Jim
And I'm a PC. Whoa,
lights,
whoa, what happened to you,
right?
PC?
Kids happened. I was bought for a home. Now I have to make movies and blogs and listen to music every night. I'm crying myself to sleep mode.
Sorry about it.
You were made to stimulate 10-year-old brains with your iLife jazz. All I want to do is balance their checkbooks.
I don't think 10-year-olds have checkbooks.
No checkbooks, no inboxes, no employers, just wild imaginations. Oh, I have to go listen to some emo.
All right, that's it. So, yeah, can you all you guys just find your own examples of the everyman? And I see some of you guys have already started, and just add some quotes that you could find about them online. And I'm just gonna give 15 minutes, and at the end of 15 minutes, we'll just go and give, just go around and share for 5 minutes. Yeah, we're gonna continue to post. We're gonna turn probably this entire presentation into an article. So if you want to come back and look into it, you can find it. And then thanks for all your work on helping define this brand voice guide. We're gonna try to find areas where we can inject some of this personality, and it looks really great so far. Thanks everybody.